Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show, where we get to the heart of why you overeat and how to stop. If you struggle with food and weight like I did, welcome home. Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show. So happy to have you here. It is a great day to be alive, and I have an amazing guest here for you today. Somebody I heard, he was a speaker at the same event I was at recently for my TEDx event. So before I jump into that interview and introducing him to you, I wanted to just mention that we are streaming this show in the Facebook group, The Secret Sauce to End Emotional Eating. So if you want to get hot off the press recordings and also the live interviews that I do, go to The Secret Sauce to End Emotional Eating. It's a group, a private Facebook group, and just type it in on Facebook and ask to join, and we'd love to have you. Also, the Quit Sugar Challenge is approaching. If you have not gotten your ticket yet for the Quit Sugar Challenge, definitely go to quitsugarchallenge.com, register, join us. Really excited about it. And it's an amazing journey. It's 5 days of learning how to move beyond sugar and get sugar out of your life, but not sacrifice all the yummy foods that you enjoy, sweet foods. Okay, so I still have a sweet tooth, but I'm going to share with you my favorite recipes and all the ways that you can enjoy your food, not feel deprived, but literally, move on from sugar so that sugar is no longer debilitating your body, creating sickness and inflammation, because it's time, right? It's time to stop feeling sick. It's the time to stop being addicted, coming home from work and just jumping into the cookies and the ice cream and the carbs. Carbs turn into sugar as well. So if you're a chip addict, a corn chip addict, or some kind of carby foods, that's coming from the same addictive place, that addiction to sugar as well. So it's time to just clear that out, and to feel better about yourself, to lose weight as a result. It's the quickest way to lose weight is to stop eating sugar and processed carbs. So come with us on the Quit Sugar Challenge, and we'll do it together, because it's nearly impossible to do it on your own. Sugar is too big a foe. It's everywhere. Everybody's eating it. Everybody's pushing it. So join us for the Quit Sugar Challenge by going to quitsugarchallenge.com and tell your girlfriends. Love to have them. It's fun to do it together, right? So tell them about it and have them join you. So on with the show. I wanted to pop in here with my podcast guest for the day, because we have such an interesting topic to cover that is so absolutely important and vital for emotional eaters. And it's not something, we talk a whole lot about, but boy, oh boy, in my programs, it comes up. So why not cover it here? I'm so excited about my guest. I'll tell you a little bit about him. Perry Power is an actor, a script writer, an author and writer. But the most important thing about him, I'm going to tell you, is that he was on the TEDx stage with me just a couple days ago. So, I met him there. He gave a powerful talk, and I just texted him right after, and I said, I'd like to have you on my show. And I just absolutely loved what he has to say. But it turns out he ranked up 2.3 million likes and 125,000 followers on TikTok with his message, which is a really powerful message about breaking the silence around sexual abuse. And because I've been somebody who's experienced sexual abuse, and certainly jillions of emotional eaters have as well, that's why I wanted to come here today and talk with him and share this with you. So welcome, Perry.
Hello. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
It's great to have you. And as I just told you before we jumped on, you really rocked out your talk and really touched me, and I know touched so many other people, and will, with your TEDx talk. So thank you for your amazing passion and, clarity of message. And let's jump into this today. So why don't you, if you don't mind, tell a little bit about your story and how this all started?
Sure. I'll give a brief overview, then we can dive into any areas if you wish.
Mhm.
So I'm a Londoner. I'm an actor. I was born and raised as an actor. And when I was 4 years old, my biological mother, she walked out. We have a great relationship now, and I always say this because she's an absolute diamond. She's as crazy as I am, so I know where I get it from. She came into my life a bit later on, but she did leave when I was 4, so it was just me and my dad. So my dad raised me. A few years later, my stepmom came into the picture, and then they got married over in South Africa. So she's South African. That side of my family are from SA too. And I very frequently would go around to my nan's house, which is my dad's mum, who lived about a 15-minute walk, probably, from our house in London. And she had a husband, which is my step granddad. Now, from the age of about 10 to 11 and a half, my step granddad was sexually abused me, right? But back then, it wasn't sexual abuse. Back then, it was a form of love that he was giving me. I had no idea what it was. I had no idea what sexual abuse was. Sexual abuse wasn't a thing on the news. It wasn't on a thing in the papers. It just wasn't, right? So for me, I had no idea what it was. And I literally just thought it was a form of love and affection that my step granddad was giving me that another member of my family wasn't. So I didn't expect anything out of it until he abused me, because sometimes he would sexually abuse me in a room of people, in a room with no people. And some people are like, in a room of people, they didn't know, right? They didn't know what he was doing to me. Because he might, I might be sitting on his lap watching TV and he have his hand down my pants and he's playing with me, but it might be a cushion there or something. So nobody would know.
Right.
But it was one of those times where he was doing it to me and my stepmom saw it, right? And for some reason, my step granddad just had the guts where there's no pillow, no blanket, nothing. And he had his hand down my pants right in front of my stepmom. And my stepmom just flipped, not out of anger, out of, holy, what the hell was going on? She walked out and called me out. Then I stopped going around there. Then I lived in silence because my dad told me to keep it a secret. When she went home, she told my dad. My dad flipped out. He's like, right, don't go to school. Don't tell your friends. Don't tell teachers. Right, don't tell other family members. Just keep this at home. Keep this between the four walls. At that age, though, still, I was like, sure. Why you get so stressed out? Right? I still didn't understand. But I lived in silence which happened to be over 12 years. And my dad, from about 2014, he started to drink. Then the drinking started to get more. He literally just became a raging alcoholic, but he was invisible. Nobody knew he was drunk. He was a pro. I think it's where I get my acting from, right? He was a straight gangster when it came to not looking like you're drunk. And like, it's literally an art. But then as we know, right, and I know you're going to know this, especially with what you do in regards to the fact that it's a domino effect, right? When you got a wound that is open, it leads into other areas. It veins out, it branches out, right? And the branches will look like overeating. The branches will look like alcohol consumption, drugs, right? Emotions. And so my dad became an alcoholic. Then his blood pressure went through the roof. He was on medications every single day for high blood pressure. Then in January 2017, became a diabetic. 5 months later, I had a heart attack and died.
Amazing.
And
And
then
wait, let me clarify something.
Sure.
Perry, this all happened kind of on the heels of what happened to you and his finding out about it?
What do you mean?
You mean, what I mean is, did he start drinking after this whole thing blew up in terms of finding out about the sexual abuse?
No. I mean, because he found out when I was 11 and a half and he started drinking. So 2017, that's 4 years ago. I'm 26. So when I was about 22.
Okay.
Right. So we're talking maybe 10 years later, he started to drink.
Okay.
So, but between those 10 years, there was a point where he was addicted to speed, the drug, right? And he would stay up all night. I don't know. That could have been a coping mechanism for that. It could have been a coping mechanism for something else. Yeah. I don't know.
I was thinking in terms of it triggering him, you know?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. But I think the drinking I know why the drinking started. I can put two and two together, and that is that my dad was a man's man, but he was very, if you're British, if you're like, the sense of masculinity, and I know it's strong everywhere, but especially in the UK, if you're a British man, and we're known for that here, we're known for being proud men, right? We don't be vulnerable, we don't share, right? Especially as a British man. And my dad wasn't only a British man, he was a Cockney Londoner. Now, Cockney Londoner are the ones that are famously portrayed as gangsters in movies because they're Cockney. right?
Right.
They're not females, they're not women, right? They're men. And that was my dad. My dad's mum, so my nan, was born under the Bow Bells. And if you're born under the Bow Bells, if you can hear the bells chiming, right,
Yeah.
you're true Cockney. And that was my dad's side of the family. So he had that through his running through his blood, so to speak. So when he got older and he lost his job, then he went to another job. Then we reckon he got caught drinking there, right? And then he lost that job. So we think it was just this consistency of being beaten down by the universe, right? And not winning. And then that was eating down his masculinity because he wasn't providing for the house with money, right? Yeah. And he wasn't getting opportunities. And my stepmom was like tending to him when it should be the other way around in his eyes. And then that's when the alcohol escalated, and then boom.
Got it. Okay. So carry on. I didn't mean to take you off your
that's all right.
Story, but thank you.
No, that's fine. So he passed away, and it was really when he passed away when my life changed. Like I completely believe that, like I say all the time, I do say this to some people, this triggers, to some people they won't agree, and some people they do agree. But I say that the sexual abuse and my dad's death are some of the best things that ever happened to me, ever, right? And the reason why I say that is because of how I'm choosing to look at it.
Yeah.
Okay. So the sexual abuse, if I never went through that, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have done that TED Talk. I wouldn't have my book. I wouldn't be going to a movie. None of this would be here. I may have a different message, but who knows? There's no point in with if and or buts. And with my dad's death, if he was still alive today, I don't know if I would be sharing my story in the way that I am today, because my dad, although he's a beautiful man, he was quite emotionally manipulative, and he needed to have control over you. That was my dad. And because don't forget, he's the one who told me to keep quiet when I was younger.
Yeah.
Right. Now, a year before his death, he told me to watch a film called Spotlight. And Spotlight is about Boston journalists in 2001 that dive into a case of Catholic priests molesting kids in Boston, USA.
I've seen it. It's an amazing movie.
What a beautiful film, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful film.
Yeah.
And he told me to watch that. And he goes, right, at the end of the movie, before the credits, they have like states around the US, right, where there's been molestations from Catholic priests to children. And then after the states in the US, there's all places around the world. And my dad was like, well, where your step-granddad grew up is listed at the end of that movie. And he was like, and the orphanage that he grew up in had molestations there as well. So when he said that to me, that's when it started to come into my mind. So there's a chain here, right? There's a chain. And it made me start to become more aware. Then that sent me on this journey of like being inquisitive. And then when my dad passed away, I was like, and again, you guys will be able to relate to this, right? You're not born an alcoholic. You're not born wanting to binge eat. You're not born, raping kids or wanting to rape kids, right? It's just not something that happens. It's something that comes from open wounds, from conditioning, whatever, society, these expectations set upon you, it comes. So I wanted to find out. So basically, I broke my silence, shared my story. And then that's when I found out from a family member that it was her, it was my cousin, it was me, and it was my dad. They were all victims of abuse from the same man.
Wow.
So is this and this is the thing, right? This is so then I ended up doing the book, and now with the movie that we're focusing on now, it's going to be huge. This film is going to be huge, because what we're doing is how Spotlight shined a light on the cover up in the Catholic Church system. What we're doing is shining a spotlight on sexual abuse that happens within families. And that is the most taboo kind, because we see movies, we see stories of, and this is obviously terrible too, but like with the Me Too movement and stuff, we see a lot of it of like people, a stranger molesting or raping somebody, or somebody in the industry, like it, but like that. But when it's your uncle, when it's your mum, when it's your dad, when it's your brother, when it's your, that is it stays silent because of how taboo it is. And it's the silence that kills the family. It's the silence that destroys the lives that are involved, because like there was I saw this tweeting conversation recently where there was this mum, and this is the interesting thing, right? The mum tweeted to say that her dad abused her growing up, right? Doesn't happen anymore, but her dad abused her growing up. She goes, and she's got kids. She goes, I want my kids to have a relationship with my dad, right? But if I don't let my kids see him because I know what he's up to, because I know that he likes kids, then I'm stopping my kids from having a relationship with their granddad. And if I take my dad down to the police station, I'm also doing that as well. So she's staying in silence because she doesn't want to destroy the family.
Yep. Oh my
And
God,
that's,
it's so rampant. And I just want to break in here. We are recording this in the secret sauce group. That's one of the big benefits of being part of the group is you can witness our live recordings of these podcasts. So if you're in the secret sauce group, please comment. It's a safe space. If you want to share that you've been a victim of sexual abuse, please do. You are in good company. I certainly was a victim of sexual abuse, big driver of my emotional eating and my gaining weight at a young age. I mean, I was obsessed with food from the minute it started because it anesthetized my pain and helped me feel safer, which is very common. So feel free to post it in the chat. Let's have a conversation about this. If you have any questions for Perry, please put that in the chat as well, and I'll check it. And of course, if you don't feel like posting that something so personal in the chat, you don't have to. Depends on where you are on that journey of healing. I'm very open about my own experiences now because I know it can help other people. That's why Perry is sharing his experiences. But it also does help to just know that you don't have to stay in silence, that this is such a common, a terrifyingly common experience. And, we are as sick as our secrets. So beginning to get help for this in whatever way that comes, whether it be therapy or, somebody safe, you feel comfortable talking with, definitely that's how we begin to heal. And we're going to talk about that more with Perry here. So back to you, Perry.
yeah. And I think it's crazy because when I first shared my story, I shared it to my partner at the time, right? Because a book came out, which is this one here. It's called The Mask of Masculinity by Lewis Howes. Mm-hmm. And he talks about you got the stoic mask, the athlete mask, the material. There we go.
I have my copy here.
There we go. So for the people listening, for the people watching, you've got the stoic mask, the athlete mask, the material mask, the sexual, the aggressive, the joker, the invincible, the know-it-all mask, and the alpha mask. And it was when he was on the Ellen DeGeneres show, and he was talking about the alpha mask. And I was like, oh my God, that's me. Now, a little bit of context, I'll quickly swift over this, is that when I was growing up in London, I was this kid who wasn't confident, who was very introverted. He wasn't good with the girls. I was a virgin when I was 16, when my mates weren't. Well, who knows? When you're at that age, you tell a lot of lies, don't you, for ego? But still, right? But I wanted to be like that. I wanted to be popular, right? I wanted to be popular with the girls. I wanted to be popular with the guys, but I couldn't because to me, my identity was a boy who was molested by a step-granddad, okay? Mm-hmm. Because I didn't want people to see that side of me because I was scared. I was afraid. I was living in shame. And then when we moved to a new location in Berkshire, I was like, nobody knows me here in this new location. So I'm going to be this character, right? I'm going to be this character when I walk into Bracknell College. I'm going to be the guy who slept with 16 or 17 girls, right? He's the lad. He is the alpha. He's extroverted. He's super confident. He doesn't care about anything, right?
Yeah.
And I became that person, and I was attracted to a lot of people, and it worked, and I faked it till I made it, and that became the reality, right? And it was great. I was like that for like 4 years. Then that book came out, and I was like, using his terminology, I was like, that wasn't a character I was creating. That was masks that I was wearing in different situations, not only so people didn't see the real me, my true authentic self, but also because the more masks that I would wear, the less I'm seeing that part of me. Right?
Yes.
And it was that day where I was like, right, I need to rip these masks off. And the only way that I could do that was by telling my girlfriend at the time about everything.
Yeah. And we all relate to wearing masks. I mean, that was so me before I began my recovery journey. I felt like such a phony in my life. I had this smile plastered on my face, like everything's fine, doing great, doing all these accomplishments. But inside I was dying, I was dying and I was living a lie because I had these secrets, and really fundamentally, and I think this comes from sexual abuse too, I felt so bad about myself. I hated myself. And I thought I was, and people in my program have heard this, I thought I was stupid. I thought I was bad. And I thought I was ugly. And there's no question, a lot, some of that came from my upbringing in my family, intellectualism was a big thing in my family. But the bad part 100% came from the sexual abuse. And I thought I was so dirty and bad, So I was covering all that up with my masks.
Exactly. When did that change for you?
It changed when I started in my recovery journey and got help for I had a spiritual healer who helped me to start digging into that stuff. And it didn't happen overnight. I'll tell you that much. I had to really, I had to get out the pain of the experience I had as a child and the secrecy, because it was the same thing you're talking about, the whole family
Yeah.
thing, there was so much secrecy and shame. And turns out my sisters had experienced sexual abuse as well. And this all came out later when we were all in, different therapy settings. But my setting was getting the help with my eating issues. But it took years to really kind of come to that place of compassion for myself. And I feel like the whole sexual abuse thing is so hard because there's pleasurable feelings involved as well. And so it really messes you up in your sexuality, because for a long time, not to, I know I'm interviewing you here, but, but, for so long, sex was such a hard thing for me because I associated my desires with being a bad person. So I ended up drinking so much. Anytime I was sexual, I was drunk and blacked out. I later stopped drinking because that wasn't obviously a good way to live. But there's so much shame and so many conflicting feelings.
Yeah, and you know what? And whenever somebody brings that up, that entry point, I I have to jump in there because I believe that this is hardly ever talked about, even on the topic of sexual abuse. And I end up having a conversation with my co-founder of the charity about this. This was last year, and that was actually the first time I'd ever talked about it because I didn't really know. And because she asked me the question, and I'll say this. She said to me, her name's Juliet. She goes, Perry, now with Juliet, she grew up in a trafficking ring. So she grew up in a foster care home where her and the other kids in the foster care home were tortured. I'm talking about cut open, right? She got scars all over her body. She was raped every day, and she would have to hold down her friends and the other kids, right?
God.
It was part of satanic rituals. So they would like do the satanic rituals as a part of this cult thing. And she said to me, right? She said to me last year, she goes, Perry, do you, she goes, because she knows I am an open book. Like there is nothing that you can't ask me. Like there's no judgment. And she goes to me, she goes, I know I can ask you this. I was like, go on then. She goes, with what you've been through, do you think like with your sexual fantasies and fetishes that you have today, she goes, do you think there's a link to the abuse that you went through? And when she said that, I was oh, and then it draws back because like she said, and I just find it's fascinating, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because she was like, she was like, she goes, for example, with me, she goes, I love to watch people have sex. She goes, I don't need to be involved. She goes, but I love watching people have sex. And she goes, but that's because I know as a child, I wasn't building sandcastles. I was watching men having sex with kids every single day. She goes, but I grew up. She goes, but there's a long period of time. She goes, where I knew that would turn me on. She goes, but that's disgusting. How can I allow myself to be turned on by that with what I've been through? But then it's about healing the whole journey in between to get to the pace where you're like, you know what, that does turn me on and that's okay.
Right.
Type of thing. Do you know what I mean? And I just think that's such a fascinating part of the whole arena of the abuse and what you've been through.
No question about it. Yeah, it's a confusing, it's such a, I mean, you're basically asking a child who hasn't developed their sexuality in the normal, progressive way, their childhood, their innocence is being interrupted, with feelings that they're not prepared for, and that was true for me. And it's awful. It's so bad. And it will twist you so bad in that I had to do so much work to get untwisted around it because, and I did it mostly from, as I talk about, my clients know, I did talk about it in therapy, but the prescription that really worked for me is to have safety, to have somebody safe I could talk to. And that can be a therapist. For me, it was my spiritual mentor, but to write about it, talk about it, and pray about it. Like that's my shortcut. But I had to do a lot of writing and crying and just offloading feelings, and grieving the innocence of that sweet, sweet 5-year-old that had her innocence interrupted, and certainly for you as well. There's some grieving that needs to happen because
that inner child.
Yeah, it's like that wasn't the way it was supposed to happen. But like you, I feel like I don't regret it now because it made me the person I am,
Mm,
and thank God I love the person I am now. And I love the gifts I have to share now. And it so came from those formative years and what happened. It's just that I was blessed to have a way out, and to heal. And that's obviously what we're here to do is help people start that
exactly.
journey.
Exactly. Exactly. So I broke my silence, and then I broke my silence again after mm, it's about 3 months after that when I broke my silence to my girlfriend at the time. About 3 months after that, I was at a business mastermind conference. I used to be an online fitness coach, and I went to a mastermind to help. It's basically like, growing your online business. I was there for 4 days, an in-person event, and I broke my silence again to those four people. And then from there, I was driving home, and I'm driving home, and if you go to like an event where there's other people there who are a few steps ahead of you, right? They've opened up this new world that you haven't seen before, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I'm driving home from the mastermind. I'm still in this new world. I'm like, I need to break my silence again, but not call up every Tom, Dick, and Harry. I need to just put it out there. So I recorded a video, put it out there. And then from there, the next step was going to TikTok, which you mentioned earlier. And the reason why I went to TikTok was because a year and a half ago to 2 years ago, it was just full of kids and teenagers on there. I mean, it's now, but everybody's on there now, right? But back
Yeah.
then, it was just all kids and teenagers dancing and singing. And I was like, I'm going to disrupt that. Hi, guys, my name's Perry Power, sexual abuse, hello, right? And it's just like so out of the ordinary, like, oh my God. But I was like, if it's not meant to happen, it won't. But these guys, they're going through it right now. They're the age where they're going through it right now. So I put my story out there, 250,000 views, put my dad's story out there, 6 million views, then 125,000 followers, and then boom, 5 to 20 messages every single day on Instagram with kids talking to me, sharing with me their story of how they went through that or how they are going through this.
Yes.
And then from there, it was a charity and then the book. It's just like, what can
Beautiful.
I do next? What can I do next to put me in front of more people so more people see the message and more people are getting permission to break their silence and share their story.
Perry, what's your book called?
Breaking the silence.
Okay. Okay, great. And
So
it's out. Is it out now?
yeah,
Okay.
it's on Amazon. It came out
Okay.
just over 4 weeks ago.
Okay. Congratulations. Wow. That's so
It's
exciting.
it's crazy. The response, like I wrote that book in the first lockdown last year, right?
Hmm.
And I sat on it for a year because I didn't have the right things in place to get out there. It's basically perfectionism, which is basically insecurities, right? And and then 5 weeks ago, I was like, dude, just self-publish the book. You don't need a book editor. You don't need a designer. Get the design done in Canva. Get the
Yep.
book out there. Self-publish it. And within 48 hours, it became #1 on Amazon in
Wow.
sexual abuse category in the US and mental health in the UK. And now that has literally got me into every ounce of press. And now it's that which has influenced the movie that's coming.
Beautiful. And the movie, does it have a name yet?
Well, at the moment, it's breaking the silence, but I'm open. Some movies go through different names until when they get to the final stage. So
Yep.
at the moment, it's that.
So, so the movie's a documentary.
No, it's going to be like how Spotlight is.
Okay, so it's
So
a
fully
movie,
acting.
actual
Yeah,
movie.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Got
Actual movie. I've already got a British producer and I've already got an American producer who works at Netflix. So the things are very much in place for it to be full on mainstream. I'm writing myself into it as one of the main characters because it's loosely based off my story.
Yep.
So it's just gonna. I mean, and this is the thing. Growing up as an actor, I had no idea how I was going to get there, and it just proves that there's no one path to where you want to go. Like I had no idea that I'll be getting into acting really the way I want to be getting into it through this route. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? But it's
Yeah.
happening. So
It's beautiful. I'm so happy for you.
thank you.
You're really a beautiful soul. So I'm happy and excited for you. And really, most importantly, and I know you feel this, is the impact it can make and how it can help people. Because for anybody who's listening who has lived with a secret for so long, you know, excuse me, Perry's message is obviously about getting it out. And so is mine. Like, it's like, I wouldn't have the freedom from emotional eating that I have if I hadn't been willing to go there and just and explore that, because I mean, it was awful to feel so separate and alone with these things. And it's just like emotional eating, because so many emotional eaters feel like they're the only ones who do the crazy things they do with food. They're the only ones who have pulled, goodies out of the garbage that they threw out. They're the only ones who have stayed up late and eaten 3,000 calories in a sitting. But I did all that, so it's so important that we realize that we're not alone, because that isolation just strangles us. It strangles us, and it makes us, dim our light and feel afraid and ashamed. And that is not how God means for us to live. And
Yeah,
so, the first step is to start sharing and getting support to get it out of you. It's really, it's a poison. Our secrets and our shame is a poison that keeps us from living the life that we're meant to live. So I so appreciate your courage, Perry, and your passion for this. It's so vital. And I'm so excited about everything. And I want to, like, anything I can do to support you. I so want to be supportive of this mission that you're on, because you're a beautiful spokesperson for it. And, and your passion is contagious.
I appreciate that. I do. Like you mentioned something just there, which is it's true. When you live in a silence, it's a silence that reinforces the isolation of the abuse.
Yeah.
It grows inside of you like a virus. And Buddha said once that attachment is the root of all evil, right? And if you're unable to live in the present, if you're unable to be free, because how you're acting today is based upon what you went through in the past, you're attached to that, and that is how the evil is manifesting and growing. I just want to say something before we draw to a close, is that, and I really have to always get this out, is that people who are living in silence, if they just hear my story or they just hear the message, sometimes, well, most of the time, they are drawn under the assumption that the way to break their silence is there's only one way, and that's to tell somebody. And I want to make it very clear that that isn't the only way, not to begin with, right? Because if you're living in silence and you're like, oh, I've got to tell somebody, I've got to tell my partner, I've got to tell the therapist, I've got to tell somebody, then that can keep you in silence even longer, right? Because of this external world that you're thinking exists. Once you break that silence, you tell somebody, they're going to laugh at you, they're going to point fingers, they're going to say that you deserved it, they're going to say that you made it up, right? So I want to say that it's all about breaking the silence to yourself first. So that could be journaling, that could be drawing, that could be choreographing a dance, that could be writing a poem, it could be writing a song, it could be doing a piano song of the, because it's about just telling yourself, one, that you went through what you went through, i.e. confronting your inner demons, confronting that part of your story, right? And then it's also releasing the emotions that you have locked away in those cages inside of you that you've locked and thrown away in the key, for 14 years or however long it's been on for. And I said this in the TEDx talk, and I say this a lot, is that, if we see paintings, right? Sometimes we see a painting and it looks like there's paint splatters all over it, right? And we're like, okay, it's great, but why is it 500,000? Why is it 200,000, right? I don't understand. How is this art? It's just paint splatters. Some people love it. But then how do you not know that the artist, right, was living in silence for 18 years, and a way that they broke their silence to themselves, and actually for the very first time in their entire life, released it and admit it to the universe, is by releasing their emotions onto that blank canvas, by throwing paint in it, right? And what we see as a mess to them is 18 years worth of silence being broken. So it's about taking those steps for yourself first. Doing step 1 to 20 is different ways of breaking the silence yourself. Then step 21 can be telling somebody, rather than step 21 being number 1.
Yeah, I love that, Perry. It's so beautiful. And it is the relationship with ourselves that we're building, because, when we deny these things or we push them down and then we hurt ourselves over it, like I was literally abusing myself because of what happened and my shame around it. When we do that, we are breaking that relationship with ourselves. And to your point, I also want to share that, we do blame ourselves. We do blame ourselves. And somehow with so many people, they think, oh, I caused it. You mentioned that, like, oh, I caused it, or I had it coming, or whatever. Somehow we blame ourselves, and also what I found for myself is it wasn't like my particular version of it wasn't terrible. I wasn't hurt physically or anything like that, you know? And so I minimized it and thought, oh, it's not like other people's sexual abuse, so it's not anything. And I grew up in good circumstances and I had very loving parents. So like who am I? Who am I to go there and think there's something wrong with my childhood or to complain or to anything? And we just have all these voices in our head that wants to, you know, basically invalidate the experience and the importance of the experience. And I found that I had to do the work, even though it wasn't, you know, on the scale of sexual abuse, it wasn't the worst case, or, you know, and even though I had a good childhood, you know, overall, I had to honor myself by saying, hey, it still was sexual abuse. It still had all these components, the secrecy, you know, the shame, the feeling terrible about myself, thinking I was bad. I mean, I thought I was perverted, you know, because of my desires around it. You know, I had so many conflicting feelings. And so it was such a beautiful journey of honoring myself by doing work to explore this and say, yeah, it was real. Like, you know, it happened and it definitely impacted me. It changed my life. It's a life-changing experience. I was never the same again, you know? And so just, we have to honor ourselves by letting ourselves go through the healing journey around it. And so many beautiful things can come from it. And that's the truth, is it's anytime we're willing to work on ourselves, just like, you know, a willing to address emotional eating and the underlying causes, anytime we're willing to take that step to heal, it will open up so many new opportunities for us and bring us to a whole new place that will ultimately be beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. And like definitely with the people around you, it's like, how can you love to the fullest extent those around you when you're struggling to love yourself,
Yeah,
right? It's impossible to fill up other people's love cup when your love cup is empty, right? And
so
it's about filling up their love cup from the overflow of your own one,
yeah,
right? And that is something that's been so, I never really I understood that. Like I knew of that, but I only truly understood the weight of that when it just clicked into place and I started to confront my own inner demons. And then I saw the change within me internally. And I felt my own love cup flowing. I was like, I've got so much love to give.
yeah, yeah,
Right. Before I'd trick myself, but there's a ceiling there. You
yeah,
know, it's like a burned battery trying to operate a train. Like, you know, it's not going to happen.
right.
You know,
Yeah,
so yeah, I completely back what you just said. I think it's the most beautiful thing, also the hardest,
yep.
but nothing comes easy, does it? If it's
No,
worth it.
no, it's worth it. So, well, your love cup definitely overfloweth. So, it's so fun talking to you, Perry, and I hope we have future conversations.
Oh,
So
of course.
yeah, so thank you. Good luck with the film and the book, and you know, anybody who wants to start this process, you know, today's the day. Today's the day to start honoring yourself and what you've been through, because, you know, and as a good friend of mine says, all God's children got problems. So, you know,
That's it.
we've all got something to work on, so might as well get going on it. So it's
That's
experience
it.
benefits. So
Yeah,
thank you
yeah.
so much, Perry.
No worries. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for inviting me and giving me a platform to share my story. I really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
it's great. I have one last question for you that I like to ask my guests, and this being the Heal Your Hunger show, what would you say is your deepest hunger?
My deepest hunger would be, you know, I think if I look at what's happening now and everything that I'm doing now, the only way, and it's crazy, right? I've been in entrepreneurship for 7 years now, and I've tried and tested multiple different businesses in multiple different industries, and I would either give up because I got very bored, or I'll get burnt out, right?
Mhm.
But those points that I hit where I got burnt out, I am surpassing that since the last 5 weeks. Since this book has launched, I have never been so busy in my entire life. Entire life. From morning to evening, so all I'm doing is this message. And you know why? I think it's because when this book launched, it's like somebody showing me, you know, it's like, I mean, I don't eat meat. I'm a vegetarian. right? But it's like a lion who hasn't eaten for years, and a keeper just shows it as just the juiciest steak, and he's never seen a steak before, and he's seen a steak, and he is doing everything he possibly can to get a steak. For me, when this book launched, it's like I was a hungry lion before, right? And then the universe showed me the steak, and now every single day I'm hungry, right? For more lives to be changed, for more people to read the book, right? For more people to hear my message. And that is what's enabling me to operate at this capacity. So, not to your question, I think it's my purpose, is what's the hunger.
Yeah.
You know, and how do I heal that? By just continue chasing it.
Yeah, yes. Awesome. You're doing it. And it's written all over you. And your TED Talk was awesome. And it will be great when it comes out, and everything, you know, is aligning for you because you are on your purpose. So I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Love you so much. Please join us in the Quit Sugar Challenge again, coming up, quitsugarchallenge.com. And please come back for the next episode where we will explore more things that drive the emotional eating that we are seeking to heal from. So thanks, everybody. Thank you, Perry. Bless you.
Cheers.
And bye for now.
Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to get free support, insider health info, exclusive invites to events, and more, visit healyourhunger.com.